Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is our December session for Cybermentoring for the PATHS Project here at Region 1. And we're very excited today to have Dr. Betancourt Garcia and Dr. Trevino with us. Hello, ladies. How are you doing? I want to welcome our students and our teachers. We're going to have a little bit at the beginning where we're talking, but then I'm going to open up the chat and open up to be able to unmute yourself and ask questions in a little while. So welcome, everyone. We're very excited to have you. I want to remind everyone that this is being recorded and you'll be able to access it later on YouTube, and I'll send out the link early this afternoon. So Dr. Trevino and Dr. Betancourt Garcia, how are you doing?
We're doing wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Very well. And we're also joined by Rachel Sanchez. And if you've been watching, you'll know that I interviewed Rachel in October. She was a PATHS intern for 3 years, and she's currently working at DHR Health. So welcome, Rachel. So Drs. Trevino and Betancourt Garcia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good. So I am from Edinburgh, Texas. I graduated from Edinburgh North in 2002. And my family has been from Edinburgh, so this is, kind of my home. I went to medical school in Reynosa because I had a lot of family issues that I had to take care of, and I couldn't really go away. So that was kind of a way for me to meet my goal, but also, keep my responsibility to my family and, my commitment to them. And so right after medical school, I became a volunteer here at DHR Health. And I did that for about a year. And then, because of the work we were doing, I think, the DHR luckily was willing to invest in research. And so under Dr. Trevino and then subsequently under Dr. Rao, we were able to build kind of the DHR Health Institute for Research and Development. And so that's where I'm at now.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Trevino.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us. I am born and raised in Far, Texas, so I'm a graduate of PSGA High School. I graduated in 1992. I always share that I think my experience at PSGA, especially my biology teacher, Mr. Ramirez, he was such a strong force in the direction that I took to seek biology as as my major in college and then as a master's student. So he was very, very influential to me. And I think before we forget, since I have some educators in the room, we want to thank all of our teachers for all the work that you do that sometimes goes unnoticed. Trust me, we would not be here without you. So kudos to our teachers that are listening and thank you so much.
Yeah.
So after I graduated from high school, I went to San Antonio and I got a bachelor's. And then after that, I got a master's in biology. And I think it was then that I decided that I wanted to stay in research and in science. And I just really liked the kind of the nature of this major, that you could be inquisitive and you could ask questions and you could do experiments, and you were really at the liberty to take your questions the direction that you wanted to. And then I was very fortunate and blessed to have the support of my mentors and my family to encourage me to seek a higher education, a PhD. And so I did. I applied to various programs across the country, and I finally decided to go to California, and I got a PhD in molecular biology. So I've been very blessed to be able to go to different places to explore different environments, different cultures, which I think is really important to our students, to be able to be open to anybody and everybody of different races and backgrounds. And I was able to come back to Texas, and I worked at Baylor. I also spent some time. And hello, doctors, this is fantastic. Girl power. Yes.
Yes. Girl power.
I had some training at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. one of the most extraordinary places I think ever that you'll be able to see. Did a lot of work in trying to help kids that had, cancer in this particular, in my particular experience. And then I was able to come back home, which was really important to me. My family means the world to me. I think like all of us here, we do everything we can to grow and to achieve great things, but ultimately give back to the community that made us. And so I'm back here at DHR Health, privileged to work alongside Dr. Betancourt, who's incredible, does a lot more than what she gave herself credit for, but very, very blessed. So, and thank you, Dr. Alvarado and Claudia and Region 1 for partnering with us. Happy to share our experiences with the teachers and the students.
Well, to the contrary, we're the ones who are truly blessed to have you as partners. And yes, I'm very excited. Thank you, Ms. Schauer, for putting that in the chat. Isn't it amazing that we have all these great women? Not that we don't need the men and need their contributions, but this is very exciting for us to see all the women who have achieved so much. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, take both of you back to high school. And Dr. Trevino, you brought up biology in high school. So I want you to talk a little bit about when you were in high school. What did you think? What did you hope? Like, what were your plans? I will tell you right now, my plans in high school were very different than where I ended up. So tell us a little bit about your high school experience.
Okay. So I have the best memories of high school. I was a cheerleader in high school, and I was, I loved that aspect of being in high school. Very gregarious, very outgoing, football games. But along those same lines, again, I guess my family always instilled, well, you can do all this, you can have all that fun, but you also have to do well in school, right? And don't forget about, the importance of school. But in answer to your question, what were my plans and my hopes? Very different than where I am now. Very different. I'll be very honest. I was going to travel the world and just, free spirit, go and experience the world and not do this. I'll tell you that. I knew how much I loved biology. I knew that I was really good at it too. Because I just got it. You know how some people just love history or love math or social studies or whatever it may be, English, literature. I just loved biology. And I remember Dr. Ramirez, and this is going to be corny, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go here. So we were in class and we were learning about the cells and what's in the cells. And he says, he might have retired already, Mr. Ramirez. When you're walking through the hallway and you see that cute boy or cute girl and you say, hi, hyaluronic acid. So hyaluronic acid is the glue, right? Kind of. And so I will never get that out of my head. And he just had such a distinct way of teaching. Mm-hmm. Was able to grasp the students, right? And I think that's what's key nowadays and staying relevant and
relatable.
Exactly, relatable. But no, I didn't think I was going to go into science. I didn't think I was going to be a researcher. I sure didn't think that I was going to be leading a research institute. But you know what? I think that lends towards us being open and receptive to different opportunities, different challenges, right? And always stepping up to that challenge.
Right. Right.
Did you have good grades, Dr. Trevino, or were there some classes that you struggled with? Was biology always something that came natural to you and you made good grades in science?
Great question. So in high school, yes, I did very well in high school. Always, I excelled more in the sciences, and I just got it, but I think I excelled really well in high school. Once I got to college, I think, maybe because I was in San Antonio, and there was so much more that was open and available to what we could pursue, that I did well in college, but in hindsight, I know I could have done a lot better. Mm-hmm. Right. And then once I knew exactly what I was doing, where I was going, when I got a master's, then I kicked it back into gear. Right. and I struggled in some courses, and even in college, I struggled in biochemistry, right? And the chemistries are not my strong suit, right? It was the biologies, it was the maths, it was the physics that I was, better at. But, those classes that I wasn't very good in, I did whatever I could to try to get the help I needed, tutoring, office hours, working with colleagues that were better than me, and how do you do it? And, so, but yeah, in high school, I think I was doing okay, but it ebbed and flowed as the courses got tougher.
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the teachers that you have, because I mean, you can't stress enough that just having the right person in the right subject really makes a big difference. And we do truly appreciate all of our teachers out there. So thank you for bringing that up also. So Dr. Betancourt Garcia, let's hear about your high school experience.
Sure. So I was always really focused, and I'll share something really personal. My parents had me when they were 15. And so that brought along a lot of challenges. My mom actually used to take me to some of her high school classes, what you could do back then, right? And so it was really tough for them. We had a really humble upbringing, but she became a teacher. And she always was like, education's the way, like we don't have another way out. So I was always really focused. Even in junior high, I did like a kind of an exchange program where you could go to like Europe, for 30 days. And it was always a lot of investment and education. And I think that was one thing that kind of kept me just, progressing and excelling, if you will. My parents worked in the fields and my grandparents worked in the fields. And so they always knew that this was kind of going to be the ticket. And so I always knew I wanted to be a doctor. So I was always really, really focused. Just like Dr. Trevino, I was always really involved. I was a cheerleader. I was in band. We were always track and field, always trying to like do more and more and more. I think sometimes it's hard when you have a lot of, like I said, family responsibility to kind of meet all the marks at school, but also do them at home.
Right.
You have to be really determined to make it. And so, yeah, I think in high school, I was really focused, that came easy, but there was a lot of home responsibility that I had to take care of. And so that was kind of my challenge. It wasn't necessarily the schoolwork, but it was kind of balancing what was happening at home and then, what was happening at school. So school was kind of like, I think even for some kids, school was kind of like my escape. Like, this is where I get to be, this is where I get to focus on me. And I think that was really helpful. And I kind of just took that, instead of letting that kind of bog me down, I embraced that time that I got to spend with myself and learn about myself and then learn about what I wanted to do. And so that was kind of my high school experience.
So how did you find the balance then for both of you? Because you were both very involved, had a lot of extracurriculars. And I do think that's something that our students struggle with, is taking these challenging classes, starting to take dual enrollment and certification classes in the summer. How did you find that balance in high school to be able to get through that?
So I certainly think that today's students, they have it a little tougher than we did, right? I mean, like I said, I graduated in 92. There wasn't dual enrollment, but at the same time, I don't think the emphasis on your schoolwork and the academic has diminished any. I think it's either the same or even maybe higher now. And I think even as you continue to seek these courses, you have to find a way to balance it, right? You can't be all about one thing and not of the other, because it won't work. It's not sustainable to be school, right? You have to have fun, right? Because that's the only way I think some of our students are gonna breathe, right? At the same time, that does have to be your focus, right? Because that is what's gonna get you to the next place, right? Yes, if we have, the athletes in the room, those that are doing really well in sports that can maybe pursue, your education and get like scholarships from, baseball, football, volleyball, basketball, whomever, whatever it may be, then that's fantastic as well. But I do think, if you have to, now there's so much more available for time management and calendars and reminders, and, give yourself some time to breathe, to play, go
Yes.
have dinner with your friends or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever it may be, but you have to find it. You have to find that balance, and it's going to take some trial and error. But remember, at the end of the day, when you're going to medical school, or you're going to college and you have these interviews, they're going to want to see that you're a well-rounded person, that you're able to have communications, that you can talk to someone, and know about what's going on in the world, right? What is happening in the world, and not just in our little bubbles, which we tend to stay in sometimes.
Yes.
So my advice to all of the students, to all of you, is to, yes, figure out what's important to you, and that be academically, or professionally and personally, and do your best at, of course, finding what's important, nailing that, and then having the fun. I mean, the saying of work hard and play hard, it's true. It really is, but give yourselves a little break, allow yourselves to have fun, and then get back in there and do what you have to do.
Yes, I agree. Dr. Betancourt, how did you find that balance?
For me, I kind of felt like my balance was actually my extracurricular activities. Like that was my time to be with my friends. Like we would go on band trips, or we went to Disney, or we had to go to a football game or a baseball game. That was the time that we got to interact. Yes, I was working, right? I was in my cheer uniform, or I was doing band or whatever, but it's really time that, you perform for those 10-15 minutes, and then you can kind of hang out with your friends
And have fun.
and so that was kind of the balance for me, right? And then also, I think even like drilling down to the classes that you take, you don't have to take English 5 if you don't need English 5. Like I took it because I liked it and I wanted to do it, but that might not be for everyone, right? I mean, sometimes, yeah, it looks good on your resume, but what's the return on the investment? Like, am I going to get burned out? Am I not going to do well in this other thing? Am I going to miss out on something else? And so you really have to balance even like the classes that you're about to take, and that you can have time to think about that. I mean, you decide what classes you're going to take even 6 months before you take them, or the next year.
Right.
I think that is really, really important. And yeah, I agree with Dr. Trevino. I mean, especially for me, it was like, that was my time to kind of relax and just be me, and not really have to stress about like what grades I was going to get. And I did do enrollment. So like I went to high school in the morning, and then I went to, at the time it was Pan Am in the afternoon.
Right.
And so there was some sacrifice there with like maybe a little less, that was already my senior year, but maybe a little less time with friends, or going out, or
Right. Socializing.
Yeah. But definitely at the beginning, especially your freshman, like you just want to explore. You really don't even know what you like. So you have to explore and try new things. And then that's how you decide whether you like it or you don't like it.
So I know another thing that students usually ask, and I want to remind Mr. Ochoa, Ms. Shower, and Mr. Salivar, and Ms. Rembau, your classes. If you have questions, we have a chat feature. You can put them in the chat, and we'll ask the doctors for you. But I want to know about summers when you were young, because that's something that comes up. Students ask this all the time. Right now is the time when our students are deciding what they're going to do this summer. And I can tell you, I'm a lot older than you guys. I didn't have the choices in the summer that students today have. And sometimes they're faced with 3 or 4 different choices for summer. So tell us a little bit about your summers, and what did you choose to do, and how did you make those decisions?
Okay, so our summers when we were in high school, or summers when we were in college, or?
When you were in high school. We're still talking about high school.
Okay, so, I mean, yeah, again, we didn't have a lot of the options available. Maybe they were, and I just didn't really know about them. But our summers were mostly, again, our cheerleading squad was very active throughout the summer, right? Helping with, all sorts of events that happened throughout the summer. But school-wise, if I took a summer class, it was to maybe learn a little bit more or get more credits than I needed, or, even if I had to play catch up or whatever it may be. But our summers were mostly, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember having too many options for scholastic things during the summer. Wants to know if you can shadow.
They want to shadow with you.
Sure. You know, my memory is now escaping me. What happened? Help me out here, Dr. Alvaro, but you're way younger than me too. Our summers, you know, summer schools, going and helping out there, taking more classes if you needed to. I wish I had a lot of the opportunities that our students have now.
Yes.
So did maybe some help. My family had like a barbecue restaurant and I would work there, earn some extra cash.
That's what I was gonna say. I worked.
Yeah.
My junior and senior year, I remember working at McDonald's and Burger King and Dairy Queen and learning all about the fast food industry and having to, you know, make some extra money so I can buy things.
Yeah, that's what
I think that that's an option for the students. And I think that now with all of the certification courses, there's also certifications that are options for students, and students want to know, is it worth it? Is it worth getting a certification in the summer, giving up your summer? You know, what do you ladies think? If you had the opportunity to get a certification in the summer, would that be something you would have pursued back then?
I think if I had the opportunity, I would have done it, but only like, I wouldn't have committed only because I know myself. I wouldn't have said, I'm gonna do the whole summer getting certifications. No, I wouldn't have. I would have said, you know, I'm gonna maybe get a certificate. I don't know how long they take, maybe half the summer, 2 certifications that I knew would have helped me when I got into college, you know, but even then, Dr. Betancourt brought up a good point. You don't necessarily know exactly, and if you do, that's fantastic, right? You have a plan, I'm gonna do this, this, and this. But if you don't, that's okay too, right? Because once you get into college, you're seeing all these courses and all these different majors, and you know, now you've got students that are sophomores and juniors and seniors in the college. Then you're open to do really whatever it is, and you may take some time to find it, but I think for me, I certainly would have gotten a certification or 2, because I think it would have helped me more. But yeah, I mean, I worked at Texas Tea Barbecue, made some extra cash, held on to it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dr. Betancourt, how
for
about
me-
your summers and your suggestion?
Yeah, so like I said, for me, we were, you know, my family, even my grandparents were always hyper aware of the humble beginnings that we had, right?
Yes.
Like my parents were poor. So it was always such investment on education and kind of getting me to the next step. And my dad was always like, because I've always said I wanted, my mom was a teacher, like I said, and when I went to kindergarten, they would have this booklet that you would do, and it would be like, introduce yourself, and what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, what do you want to be when you grow up? And
Right.
the end of that book, when I was 5 years old, it literally said I want to be a doctor, and I drew a doctor on there. So she uses it every year for her students, and she sends it to
Aw.
she sends it to the whole family every single year.
Yeah.
And so it was just something that I always wanted to do, and my dad was like, well, I want you to be really successful, but I want you to know it's a really long journey. Like, you have to be really sure that you want to do that. And so when I was in high school, as Dr. Trevino mentioned, there wasn't many resources in the Valley, right? Like, people talked about it, but like, I didn't have anybody to ask, because nobody in my family was a doctor. Nobody in my family even went to like higher education. My mom was the only one that had graduated from college, and she became a teacher. And that was kind of like the cap. And so Houston actually has it wasn't necessarily Houston, it's called the National Youth Leadership Forum on Medicine. I don't know if it still exists, but they would have summer camps. And so my parents invested for me to go to Houston for, I think it was like 4 or 5 days. It wasn't very long. And you get to go to hospitals and speak to surgeons, and they tell you about their day. Kind of, it's something similar to this. You go to different rooms and they just tell you about what they do and what their life was like and what their journey was like. And that kind of cemented the deal for me. Like, this is what I want to do. And so I think it was just always that investment, you know, from my parents, like, just keep going. So I was really lucky in that aspect.
I'm glad to hear that, because I think that's something that our students struggle with, is finding, they have a lot of opportunities in the summer, and, you know, it's always that decision, do I do something, you know, at school or in the educational field, or do I work? And and finding that balance is really difficult. So let's talk about going to college then, because we have some seniors with us who are getting ready to make that transition. They're making their plans. It's a very exciting time, but it's also very challenging. So what can you tell us about going to college and your experience and advice that you have?
So, okay, so I think
It's hard.
it's real
It's a
hard,
tough
right?
decision.
Because, and you probably have already picked it up for the last 28 minutes. You know, it wasn't until later for me that I decided this is what I'm gonna have to, this is what I want to do. This is what I found that I have truly loved and I'm passionate about and that I'm really good at, right? And that it makes me happy. At the end of the day, you have to do something that's going to make you happy. Getting your bachelor's is an investment. It's 4 years out of your, you know, life. You get a master's, that's another 2 years. You get a PhD, it's 6 years. So that's a huge chunk of your life to be doing something that you're kind of meh, I like it, but not really. So, getting into college, when I first started, I went to UTSA. It was new to me. It was, I was outside of the Valley, but it was still, big enough for me to feel like, okay, I'm independent. I was a little kid, but I'm away from the Valley, but it was still close enough to home. But
And how did you pick UTSA? Was there a program that UTSA had, or did you like the sports that UTSA had, or?
Well, UTSA didn't have sports then, right? I mean,
Oh.
it was really just when I went to visit, the camera, Monica, now we're like this. Technical difficulty.
Coming. Okay, are we back?
Are we back?
Yes.
You're back.
All right, we've leveled off.
You're straightened out.
Okay.
There goes.
There we go again. Sorry.
Okay, I'll hold it.
I'll hold it when you get up there. Okay. There was different places that I could have stayed home. My parents were
Right.
also very go, mijita, go and do what we weren't able to do for whatever reasons, hold on. Is it working? There,
No.
yeah. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay.
It's okay
So-
if it goes
so what I
sideways.
got
We
is-
can still see you. We can still see you fine.
Okay. I think I chose UTSA, in answer to your question, Dr. Alvarado. It was close to home. Once I went to go visit and once I got to see what was afforded there, then, I just decided to stay there.
I think that's important that you visited it before you chose
I did.
it.
I did.
So
I
that's
went to
an important
there,
point.
exactly. And I had friends that were going to schools in San Antonio, also like Our Lady of the Lake or Incarnate Ward, and then friends that were going to Austin. But for me, it was more like I went to go visit. I saw the campus. I felt comfortable. My parents felt comfortable. But it's not to say that if I would have gotten anywhere else, they would have. I mean, it's always that you've got to break that tie sometimes, and it's hard
Right.
for us, because we're so tight with our families. But my advice to you is once you get into college, like identify the courses that you want to take, explore maybe different courses in different fields if you can. If you're available, you need to get your basics out of the way. I get that. But, look around, shop around for some of the courses that'll help you explore what you're really interested in and what, maybe I can fall back on this, a major in this, but a minor in that. I don't know, back then sororities and fraternities weren't really big like they are now. My goodness, they're huge now. And I'm sure that they bring an advantage as well. They
Right.
also stress academics and curriculum. But again, I'm always going to stress you have to have fun and you have to, enjoy yourself. But again, do what you have to do so that you're not having to play catch up.
Right.
As an undergraduate, I did have to play catch up a little bit. But yeah, I mean,
I think everyone does that. I think everyone struggles a little at first because change is difficult. My mom has a really good saying, if it was easy, everyone would do it. So I always remember that when things are getting tough. Dr. Betancourt, tell us about your experience, because you had an unusual experience than what most students consider. So I'm interested to hear about that.
So I was really ready to go to I don't know, Columbia or Harvard or do something real crazy. And like I said, always about education and you're excelling and, you know, your number, whatever in your class. And it was always about that, right? All the accolades.
Right.
Well, when I was a senior, another big event happened in my family and I couldn't leave. My brother was 12, and my sister was 5 at the time. And it was just kind of my responsibility to then now wash their clothes, make sure they were fed, pick them up from school, help them with homework. So I couldn't leave. I went to, luckily, I had done the dual enrollment program and I had gotten enough hours to be able to get a scholarship at Pan Am, which is now UTRGV.
Mhm.
So I was really lucky because, again, we had no money, right? And I was thinking about getting loans and all these things, but when that happened and I was staying home, the opportunities weren't the same to get these scholarships here at home.
Right.
So I was able to get a full scholarship, and so I didn't have to worry. And that was just the best thing, honestly. I was just proud of myself for doing all the work on the front end without really knowing what was going to happen to me. Kind of in that stage. And so I stayed home. I loved it. It was easy for me to come back and forth. I lived in Edinburgh. It was like 5 minutes down the road. I was just happy that I could still be with my family while we were going through this thing, and then continue my education because you know, that was really important. I didn't want to not do that, or wait to do that. You know, I guess
Right.
you can do it when the kids are bigger, but it was kind of like, I don't want to wait. Like, this is kind of my life too. And so it was great because I get to do both.
I'm glad to hear that. We have a couple questions from students. Ellie Bizan wants to know, how did you get into research?
That's a great question. I'm glad somebody asked, right? So for me, what really got me into this whole arena is, so my cousin, Melissa, who is now an OBGYN, she was in Austin, now she's up in North Texas. She says, just try it, Lisa. Get into one of the labs here at UTSA. At that time, and there's still training grants that, you know, universities will get, like there's STEM grants that they'll get from, you know, the government or the NIH or whomever it may be, to support students to enter the lab, get research experience, and they pay for it, right? They pay you a little stipend, and then they pay for some of the courses that you're taking. So she says, just try it, right? And I thought, well, I don't know anything, right? I don't know, right? But it's okay. You don't have to know, right? That's why you learn, you get in there. And so that got me into research, first of all, right? And I was in a lab with postdoctoral students in there, and I'll never forget, because she says, do you get it, right? You understand it? I'm like, yeah. She says, it's clear as muddy water. I said, yeah. No, right? And the whole point of this is that you don't have to know, right? You know, allow yourself to not know and then learn, right? Stay with them, stick with them, shadow them, right? And you'll pick it up as you go. And what really drew me to research is the fact that you can ask one question and then try 6, 7, 8 ways to try to answer that question. If one way didn't work, you could do it another way. If that way didn't work, you could do it another way. You could go back and tweak the question that you asked in the first place. The camaraderie of being in a research lab is second to none, I think, in my opinion. Maybe similar to your cohort in medical school. The bond that you make with your lab mates, right? You're both going through cloning hell, if you will. You're in lab hours and hours upon end, and both of you are encouraging each other for your experiments to work. When you have to put posters together, I think that also drew me. The fact that you found kind of like your group, right? And that helped me too. But for me, it was the inquisitive nature of research and kind of the freedom that you had to explore ways in which you could answer a question, multiple ways.
That's great. Dr. Betancourt.
I was always jealous of these types, right? Like they got to be in the lab and they got to do all these things. I had to go home. Like I had to pick up my brother and my sister. I had to make dinner. We had to do homework, right? So I always wanted to do research, but I never had the opportunity to do research just because I was restricted from, you know, the things that I had to do. So I really didn't start research until after I graduated from medical school. When I graduated from medical school, I knew that it would be difficult because I graduated in Mexico, that it would be difficult kind of coming to the US and trying to make a name for yourself, because
Right.
they don't see US graduates the same that they see international medical graduates, right?
Mhm.
And so when I came, the the first person that kind of gave me an opportunity was Dr. Force, which is at the time our chief academic officer.
Mhm.
And he sat me down and he was basically asking me, you know, what do you want to do? And I was telling him, and he was like, well, what do you think will get you there? And it was always, you know, he never really said like, this is what you should do. It was always a question. He was always inquiring. Like it was always about what your journey is and how do I get you to your journey? And so he was like, well, I mean, he knew that I was also a teacher. So after I graduated from UTRGV, or Pan Am at the time, I was a teacher for just a year while I was trying to get into medical school. And he said, well, you have this thing about learning and education that you like, and then you have medicine that you like. And so these two things can come together for you if you do research. And it was the first opportunity that I had ever gotten to do research. I was really nervous because I was like, I kind of felt like I was already so old compared to people that had done it in undergraduate. Like people start when they're like freshmen, you know, and they have all of this experience and I had zero. And I was like super nervous about it. He's like, you can do it. I will help you. Like, don't worry. And so it was just kind of like the beginning, and that, you know, that's why I was a volunteer, because I really didn't know what I was doing, but I still wanted to learn. And I was like working still 40 hours a week, even though I was volunteering, because I really needed to like,
I remember
understand.
when I first met her, she was with Dr. Force and I was just starting the program here. I thought she's incredible. Like she's a volunteer and she's
I would
moving and
come in-
shaking more than full-time employees here at DHR.
I would come all the time. I was here all the time. I would work all the time, like at night and stuff. And I still had that responsibility, you know, at home with my family and, you know, but they were already, by this time they were already older and they were in high school and kind of getting their own life together.
So more self-sufficient.
Yeah, it gave me time to kind of then refocus back on myself and spend more time doing what I like to do. So yeah, that was kind of the first opportunity that I got.
I think it's really important that you've talked about, you know, you had to change your life according to the circumstances in your life, but you were committed to this. So you continued, even though it may not have looked like what you wanted it to look like, you still found different avenues to make it work. And I think that's very admirable. Andres Flores wants to know, how do you deal with stress?
Oh, great, Andres. That's a wonderful question. And everyone listen up. Stress is something that we're gonna have. You know, it's like air. It's always gonna be there. One thing or another is always gonna stress us out. I've learned throughout many years, you know, of just being in and out of very adverse situations, and that, you know, life throws us curveballs at a moment's notice. You just don't know, right? And I really do think it's how we choose to react and respond to the stress around us, right? And so what we always have to focus, again, there are things that we can control, and there's things that are just beyond your control. And I think we have to control the controllables. Okay, write that down. You have to control the controllables. We can't do anything about a lot of things, but the things that we can control is how we respond to the storms around us. I know that sounds like a quote somewhere, but trust me, it's the truth.
Yes.
It's how you respond to someone being ugly to you and treating you like really bad, or saying something snarky to you, and you know how you really stand up and respond to that. And it could be someone in your class, it can be someone in your family that's throwing this kind of stuff at you, and you just have to ground yourself and say, okay, you know, I'm gonna control what I can, and I'm gonna do one thing at a time, right? It's very easy to get overwhelmed, very easy, right? Because here you are, you're trying to get into college, or you're trying to get, you know, up the rank, and you want to get into this good school, and you don't, like, you know, you have situations where I want to go, but my family's here. Take a deep breath, right? And really, really focus on what's in front of you, you know, and literally you can't do anything without taking one foot in front of the other, and day by day. And for some of us,
Yes.
and for some of us, it's like, okay, I need to get through until noon today. And then after noon, then I can lose it. But no, you don't lose it. But you know what I'm saying? You have to focus on what's important, what you can control. And what we can control is how we respond to the chaos around us, to what we think is stress. Be kind to yourself, you know, give yourself a break and be kind to others. We don't know what other people are going through.
Right.
So stress is never going to go away, right? There's always going to be something that's nagging, or it's just a matter of what we choose to put focus on and our energies on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think for me, there's kind of two things that tools that I use. One of them is always being grateful. And that's really hard to do when you feel like the world's falling on top of you. But I was really grateful that I was able to go to, Pan Am and go to college, even though I didn't get to go to the school I wanted to go to because, I didn't get to do that. But I honestly was really, really grateful. Like, what if I wouldn't have been able to go to school at all? What if I had to wait 4 years? What if I don't know. There's many things that could have happened that could have prevented me from getting to this seat. And
Mhm.
so I was just always really grateful for that. And then, having that perspective every time something like this happens, it's kind of like, okay, but at least I know that I'm here. And these are the things that, Dr. Trevino said I can control. And this is what, I'm going to be grateful for. The other thing is, I kind of walk it through the worst case scenario. So let's just say you're in a class and you're about to fail. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Well, I'm going to fail the class if I don't do well on this test. And then what's the worst thing? Like, maybe you have to take the class over. Like, okay, who cares, right? So I always kind of work it through like the worst case scenario. And that kind of determines whether, yes, this is a thing that I should be worried about, or no, like it's not really that big a deal, because getting your first C in college was like, so what the heck is happening to me? I wasn't used to that. I was always used to getting an A and being the top of my class and being perfect, if you will. But when I got to college and I got my dad was like, you want me to go talk to the professor? I was like, you can't do that, Dad. It's like, we're past high school, we're past that. Like, you can't do that. It's just what it is, But I was crying. I was like, this is the first time that I feel like I kind of failed, but it wasn't, at the end of the day, it wasn't that big a deal. And so that you kind of walk it through the worst case scenario and say, okay, if this doesn't happen, this is going to be worst case scenario. Let me make sure I focus on that.
I think she brings up a really great point, right? First, right, okay, and you guys have no idea how much she's helped me out, because when I'm about to walk off the deep end, she's right there and says, okay, stop and think about what happens. So again, I think if either one of us can promise you anything, is that you will fail at some point, at something or the other, and it's gonna be all right, y'all.
Yeah, it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay. If you don't do well on the GRE or on the MCAT or the LSAT or whatever it is, you take it again.
That's
If
right.
you apply to 10 schools and you get into one, that's all you need, right? You just need that one school to get into, medical school or college. Again, this comes with, I think, years of experience of going through trials and tribulations, and stuff isn't gonna work sometimes. And you just have to be able to roll with those punches the best way that you can. You have such a tremendous support group. The people that are in these rooms with you, us here, Region 1, Miss Claudia, Dr. Alvarado, your teachers. You have a world of support. You are not alone.
Yeah,
that's true. I'm going to add, I have very similar experience that, life intervened, and there were semesters that I couldn't attend college for financial reasons, family reasons. It actually took me 17 years to complete my bachelor's degree. I started when I was 18 and I didn't get it till I was 35, but I didn't ever stop. I didn't give up.
Yeah.
If it was a year that I couldn't go to school, then I didn't go. I worked, I saved money so I could go the next year. And you can't give up. You have to keep at it. And I think you have really good points. What's the worst that can happen? You do it again next year. So that's great. Alexa Cantu has a really good question. How do you deal with social commitments, like having a social life, which I do think a lot of students feel like if they commit to their education, then they're giving that up. And I can tell you, for me, that wasn't true. One of the reasons I couldn't go to school was because I got married. And one of the reasons I couldn't go was because I had a baby. So what are some social commitments that came into your life, and how did you deal with those?
Honestly, I still struggle with it. Like, that's something that I feel like I struggle with. I'm not really good at being social. I'm very committed to my family and my kids, and I always make sure that I don't overcommit because I want to make sure that I'm there for them now. just because I didn't have that growing up. So that's something that's really, really important to me to do for them. But I still struggle with like, you know, maintaining friendships and like, it's an investment, right? Like you have to give up some things in order to invest. And luckily, the friends that I made in high school have followed me for 20 years, and I'm very, very thankful and grateful. I don't know if anybody would give me the same grace now because I just don't go out that much. And, you know, it's also because that's my personality. It's not because it's a work or my kids, it's just, I'm a little bit of an introvert kind of. So that just takes some work for me to do. So yeah, it's something that I still struggle with.
So the question was, how do we handle social commitments?
Right, and having a social life.
Yeah, I think class of 25 phlebotomy students are listening to you all. Awesome. So I think we have to be okay with saying no to things, and whether that be to your friends and to your family sometimes, right? I mean, I'm not married. I don't have human children. I have a fur baby. But you have to be okay with saying no, right? For your own peace of mind, right? Whether you're telling your friends that want to go out on a Friday night, you know, I just had a heck of a week, y'all. You can say no. I'm like Monica, you know, I'd like to go out and have dinner or, you know, go to the movies or whatever it may be. But again, for me, that's just, you know, my family is first and foremost. My mother is first and foremost for me, and everyone knows it, right? And so I make that very clear that my time, you know, is going to be, and priority is my mother and my family. But still, I have to find time to say, you know what, today, my brother will step in and take care of this. And you have to give yourself that time. Be okay with saying no to social things, to tend to you, right?
Right.
Staying at home, putting a face mask on, Netflix, binge a show, whatever it may be, right? But you have to be okay with saying no.
Yes. The class of 25 phlebotomy students want you to know that they're listening to you all. So let's give them a woo.
Hi guys.
You're so
We're
important.
very
You don't have an idea. The phlebotomy,
Yeah.
our phlebotomists here are so important, you guys. Keep up the great work that you're doing. You have such an important role in healthcare. You have no idea. So please keep it up. You're doing great.
So I think the hardest part about what the students are facing for the next few years are transitions. Transitioning from high school to college, and then transitioning from high school or college to a career, which, you know, as we all remember, it was very difficult. I know that Rachel's going through that. She's finished her master's and now she has a job and all this transition. So can you give us a little advice when it comes to how to make those transitions easier?
So, you know, high school to college, that's going to be a big transition, right? You're on your own. Maybe you're in a dorm, maybe you're sharing an apartment with some friends. That transition, you know, I think sometimes we feel as if the blanket's been taken from us, right? Like our home, our parents, our family. There's always cooked dinner at home, or, you know, at least we have a place that we can go to now. You know, that transition is, well, you have to fend for yourself. You got to make yourself dinner, or you don't have anyone telling you go to class. You got to go to class. I think you handle it with that next level of where you're at, right? That level of responsibility. Own it, right? Own it and say, hey, I'm in college. Not too many people get the opportunity to go to college. I'm here, you know, either because our parents or our families are helping us, or whether we have student loans. I think you own that responsibility, you own that next step, and that's going to help you adjust somehow. You know, try to, you know, if you have friends that are going with you to that same college, you know, keep that bond open. I think also the transition from college or a higher education, like a master's or a PhD, to a job, for me anyway, I always felt like, can I do this? Like that whole imposter syndrome. Yeah. You know, where you think, do I really belong here? Or, you know, is someone gonna figure me out that I don't know what I'm doing? Like those things always, and it happens to the best of us. And realize that you do deserve to be there. You have worked so hard to get to where you're at. You know, the biggest limitation that we have is ourselves, right? And that too can be very difficult. But I think if we own where we're at and hold that accountability to ourselves, and then understand that you can always turn back and there's someone there to help you, to push you to keep moving forward. So, I mean, I think realize that you deserve to be where you're at. You've earned it. You've worked really hard and you can do it. You can do it. You can do hard things. Like, yeah, you know.
I think maybe I say kids because I know y'all feel like you're adults, but I think that we can practice kind of being independent now. Like, why are we letting our moms wake us up and say, hey, it's time to go to school? Why are they still washing our clothes? Why aren't we trying to make dinner? Like, we can be practicing some of these like skills that we're going to feel like we're kind of doing on our own. We're going to do them on our own in 6 months anyway. So I think that can probably help. The other thing is I feel like sometimes there's a lot of people around you, but you don't really know them that well because you're in college in a different environment. You maybe feel like lonely still. I think mental health services are probably really important. They have a lot of therapy at school now. And also it's like not as, taboo to speak about now. Now people can walk in and, just have their session and get on with it. I think a lot of these things will help kind of talking through it with someone and a professional, because they kind of like can guide you along this path, as opposed to like talking about it with a friend, because they're going to be like, oh yeah, you're right. It's like, no,
I agree whatever you have to say.
Yeah, they're going to be, it's kind of like confirmation bias, right? Like you gravitate towards people who are like confirming what you already believe. And so, yeah, I think that mental health isn't talked about enough. I think we definitely need to use those resources that are available to us. There's a lot of things online. You don't have to go see someone. There's a lot of things online that can help people kind of go through that transition. It can be tough. It could be tough for some people.
Yes, it is. Ms. Escobedo's or Barrientos's class has joined us, and I want to let them know that if they have questions as we're wrapping up here, you can put them in the chat and we'll be happy to ask. I'm really excited to have Ms. Schauer and Mr. Saldivar's class here. The next question I want to ask is, what's the most challenging part of your job, being in research and having the positions that you have? What's the most challenging part?
So that's a really good question. I think most challenging for me in this position, right, overseeing all the operations of the Research Institute is, we want to, so what we do is we bring clinical research, clinical trials to the patients of the Valley. Clinical trials, what they're doing is we are trying to determine if one medication is better at treating, let's say, diabetes than another medication, right? Whether they're existing or whether it's a brand new experimental medication that we're trying to determine if it works better, if it's safer, if it's more effective. We do that. We do that for patients that have diabetes. We do that for patients that have cancer, patients that have liver disease, patients that have, heart disease. For me, the most challenging thing is always trying to ensure that we're bringing in the most that we can and understanding the capacity that we have to do that and do it well. So again, not overextending ourselves, ensuring that I have a full grasp of, can we do it manpower wise? So yes, I want to bring in all the studies possible because our patients, our community needs it. But Lisa, can we do it realistically and deliver and be really good at it? So to me, it's that balance again of always saying, look, we're going to bring in these studies. I know that they're going to be, we have a lot of patients that have liver cancer or a lot of patients that have breast cancer. Are we doing the best thing? Being selective with the studies that we bring in. Again, that whole concept of, okay, I have to be okay with saying, you know what, we can't do it right now. Come back to me in 6 months. So to me, it's that balance of, I want to deliver the best that I can for my community. Right, because my community is my mom, your grandmother, your sister, my brother, because somewhere it could be me at some point, and I want to make sure that we have that.
I think for me, it's kind of like always trying to be innovative, right? Like especially when you're writing a manuscript, like you're trying to say something that no one else has ever said before, or something that no one else has thought about before, or a different angle. And so when we're looking at data, we're always looking at ways that we can, yes, improve our community, but also you call it the, the generalization of knowledge. Can someone else use this somewhere else? And then, kind of, like Dr. Trevino mentioned, it's always like, are we doing enough? How much
Right.
more can we do? That's always so hard because, we do have a capacity. We are a finite number of people. We don't have, a lot of people here I just feel like we're always trying to do the most that we can do or get the most out of what we are currently doing for the community.
That's great. So then what's the opposite of that? What's the best part about research? What's the part that just gets you there every day, excited to do what you do?
She said it's easy.
That's
and
so
it
easy,
is. And
yeah.
to me, it's when I hear a patient or I hear a success story, or I hear one of my coordinators say, Lisa, wow, the severity of disease in this patient's liver has gone down because of the study that we provided. Or a patient will come in and say, thank you. Or we've made a difference in the lives of patients that had COVID. Dr. Betancourt had a huge role in the early peak of COVID and what we were able to do. All of us, what Rachel does for us here and bringing us together that we can communicate with you. But I just think it's the satisfaction of communicating what we do, the good of what we do, and really seeing that return is when you have a patient that says, wow, I'm feeling so much better, or my diabetes is better, or my blood pressure is better, or now I know the reason why I have this disease. So it's that return, and it's the patient for me, right?
Yeah.
It's that patient interaction, the patient satisfaction. Again, because it could be me, it could be my mother, my sister, or my dear friend here that is in need of this help, or any one of you, right? I mean, so it's
Right.
that return with the patient.
Yeah.
100%. Same for me. I mean, that's the easy part. The easy part is, even like when we first started JCRI with Dr. Alvarado, like that was the beginning of kind of exploring with students. And, I was a teacher already, so I kind of had some idea of, what we could do, but really giving them the opportunity that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else is just awesome. And them being confident, them being able to articulate and stand up in front of people and write manuscripts, like it's just amazing. Like I think giving that opportunity to people is just something that I'm super grateful for, because there's people that have been giving me an opportunity that I didn't think I could get. And so giving that back to the community is always, it's the best part.
And students, I want you to know what Dr. Betancourt is talking about is the Junior Clinical Research Institute that we have in the summer. And it's where you can go to DHR and be in a research project for a time period this summer. It's one of your choices of things that you can do this summer. If you're interested, please talk to your teachers or contact us here at Region 1 PATHS Project, and we can give you more information, because it really is a great way to, like you said, practice research, go into research, get your feet wet, and to learn more about it. And it is very exciting. I agree with you. I think that's something I would have done had I had the opportunity when I was younger also, because it's something that is very interesting and exciting to be a part of. Well, ladies, I have a million more questions I could ask you, but our time is coming to a close here. I want to thank you for joining us today. I think this has been one of our best cybermentoring. It's very interesting to find out your path and how you got in the positions that you are and how you handle, all the ups and downs of it. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We'll do it again.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity.
That's great. And students, thank you for joining us. We're excited. Anyone listening to this recording, if you want more information, you're more than welcome to contact us here at Region 1, the PATHS Project, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Ms. Shower's class is telling you thank you so much for the chat. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.